When you create something from infancy and you build it year by year, and you maybe don't appreciate the growth and what you've done. Fortunately, Nancy and I have been able to travel quite a bit. And when we return after, say, a 2-week absence, and you drive in and you see what you've created and what people are enjoying. And yeah, I have a great appreciation for what we built, what we've done. It's a one-of-a-kind operation.
Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, mandatory evacuation order, leave your homes. Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, mandatory evacuation order, leave your homes.
Across the region, 15 fires are burning in 8 counties. The city of Santa Rosa lost a McDonald's, a Hilton, a mobile home park for seniors, and entire neighborhoods like Coffey Park.
It was ugly. It was close. I called my daughter and I told her, Mija, if I don't see you again, remember I love you.
There was a lot of fire, and our hyenas were immediately imperiled. They're kept in a rather large enclosure with tall grass and vegetation, and it give them privacy and seclusion. And that gave it a fuel source. And so I would put out an area of the enclosure that was on fire, and they would go to it. And enclosure to the cheetahs was, becoming imperiled, and we got that out.
It was a beautiful day. We had a full house, which means we had about 90 guests here on site spending the night. And our mechanic around 9:30 came and banged on our door. He lives here on site. He drove up to our other ranch, which is a mile up the road. And he woke us up and said, you have to leave immediately, there's a fire. So I woke Peter up and we drove down through the flames. It was really hot. I took just the dogs and left my purse and everything behind and arrived at Safari West, and Peter arrived about the same time, and our staff was evacuating the guests, and then the sheriffs and CHP came in and went behind us and made sure that all the staff left, and then Peter snuck around and stayed behind.
Got a lot of things done, and it just was hooking up garden hoses to garden hoses to garden hoses.
I first was awakened at 4 in the morning with Nancy calling me from their office at the airport, panicked because Peter had refused to leave and was here, and she wasn't sure he was alive or not. And with the devastation along the line, I was just terrified that I was going to get here and have nothing to do but bury animals. But we plan ahead for these things. We're quite often criticized for overgrazing, but we do that intentionally because then there's nothing to burn and the animals are ultimately safe. I was terrified that we were going to lose a lot of birds because of the smoke, and we didn't lose one. Birds have a very delicate respiratory system, and I was sure we would have a lot of problems down the road from this. And we actually started a program with Davis Veterinary School to examine the bird lungs and find the long-term effect. And so we were sending all the samples in, and we found that there were no short-term effects. Mysteriously, birds apparently can handle smoke better than we can.
So the night of the fire, the winds were blowing from the east, and they pushed the fire to the west. And the first thing the staff did was get everybody out of the park, including Peter. And he came back through a highway patrolman's blockade into the park alone, and realized out here where we are, there's probably not much that could have been done because we're out in the sticks, but he stayed on the lower compound and put out fires by himself with a hose. And I can't imagine what that experience would have been like, because that's just the level of trauma there is intense. But he stayed alone that first whole night, and some staff was able to come back the next day and continue the fight with him at their side. The fire came through and burned, the whole backside of the lake all burned during that. We lost some of our trucks during that fire, but the animals made it, which was probably the most important part. And all the buildings made it, and what Peter did really, I think, is going to help everybody move forward as a unit into the future.
Our animals are registered, every single one. They have an international number. It's called Species 360. And they are bred for specific reasons to preserve genetics.
Nancy, has a very different way of, approaching the science of animals than I do. You know, the fact that we've had 25 giraffes born here, that's remarkable. And, you know, dozens of other genetically valuable animals that have gone on to other zoos and have benefited, you know, animal populations in zoos in the United States.
And beyond.
Yeah.